This is the Ohio AgNet, the voice you know at the News You Trust studio, sponsored by BASF. Visit your local ag retailer about 0% financing on all BASF crop protection, seed treatment, and Zetavo brand soybeans now through March 15th. I'm Joe Everett. Well, it's a cold one here at the farm this morning, currently 2 degrees on the thermometer, and it doesn't look like it's going to get much better over the next couple of days. We'll have a full forecast update for you shortly. Some quick calendar reminders. Powered by Soy Biodiesel, we will be at the OABA Industry Conference. Thanks to the Ohio Agribusiness Association for serving Ohio agriculture. Then optimize your planter for every pass this season. Join Precision Agri-Services Incorporated for their planter clinic on Thursday, February 5th in Minster, Ohio. To learn more and RSVP, call 419-628-4167 or go to precisionagriservices.com. Now let's get an update on a sheep program. Here's Dusty Sonnenberg.
Joining me today is John Yost. John is the OSU Extension Ag Educator in Wayne County. And John, where did the idea come from to do a program really focused around sheep?
To be honest with you, sometimes we don't come up with a new novel idea. We copy what has been successful with others. Another one of our extension educators here at Ohio State, Presley Burma, over in Seneca County, had a program for the last several years called All About Goats. It was very successful, very good attendance to that. Honestly, worldwide. I think she had 1,800 people that would sign up, had registered for that, and they had several hundred in attendance. And I called her up and was like, have you ever thought of expanding this to some other subjects and species? And she said yes, but she didn't have time. So I asked, do you care if I take a part of this and run, and will you help? And she agreed to both. So that's really where we got the idea for the program and kind of the format. Registrations are coming in very well, but we want to continue to promote the event and make it available to as many producers here in Ohio as we can.
How do they go about getting more information or getting registered?
So we have, again, the informational flyer and all of the registration material can be found at go.osu.edu and then /allaboutSheep 26.
My guest again today is John Yost with OSU Extension out of Wayne County. John, thanks so much for your time. Best of luck with the program.
Thanks for the opportunity, Dusty. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Dusty, for the update. Well, Deputy Agriculture Secretary Stephen Vaden said 2 companies have been working together to control the price of fertilizer in the United States by limiting supplies. AgriPulse said Vaden's conclusion, accusation against Mosaic and Nutrien, could suggest the administration may take future steps to inject more competition into the markets if it becomes necessary. During a webinar hosted by the National Agriculture Law Center, Vaden said this administration is going to do everything it can to ensure that farmers have the fertilizer they'll need at the price they can pay. We're not going to permit these companies to do anything that might undermine that. He also said Nutrien and Mosaic were responsible for over 90% of the phosphate fertilizer and potash production in North America during 2024. Farm Action and Ag Industry Accountability Group said only 7 companies control 70% of the crop input sales, including Nutrien Ag Solutions, the retail business of Nutrien. Now let's check in for an update from Brianna Smith.
Awards recognizing leadership and excellence in Ohio's beef industry were presented over the weekend at the inaugural Buckeye Cattlemen Summit. Among this year's honorees were Kayla Haar of Ashland County, named the 2026 Ohio Cattlemen's Association Young Cattleman of the Year. I had the chance to visit with Haar about the honor and her role in Ohio's beef industry.
Well, it certainly is humbling to be selected by my peers to receive an honor, especially there's been so many people that I've looked up to that have won this award in the past. It also means a great deal for me as a young person wanting to be actively involved within the beef industry and the Ohio Cattlemen's Association. The beef industry is near and dear to my heart, and so this means a lot to receive this award.
Congratulations once again to Kayla Haar of Ashland County, the 2026 Ohio Cattlemen's Association Young Cattleman of the Year. You can learn more about all of this year's award recipients at ohioagnet.com. Reporting for Ohio's Country Journal and Ohio AgNet, I'm Brianna Smith.
Hey, thanks, Brianna, for the update. It's now time for today's weather, which is brought to us by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
Strong winds blowing across the Buckeye State here for your Tuesday. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that Ohio Ag Weather Update. The strong winds mean two things. First of all, wind chills and blowing snow. That's issue number one. Remember, the most of that snow that we got over the weekend system was very light, fluffy, powdery because it was so cold. That means it blows really easily. So winds today are going to create some drifting. Also, the winds are coming still out of a direction that may bring some lake effect, not necessarily from Lake Erie as much, although in northeast Ohio that is a story. But I think we're going to be seeing plenty of impact off of Lake Michigan, getting all the way over here, at least in northern parts of Ohio. So pay attention to that here today. The cold air settles in for the rest of the week, a reinforcing shot of cold air the second half, and another one coming down for the weekend. We're not going to thaw anytime soon. On again, off again, light snow trying to pop up early next Monday. Otherwise, cold through next week. I'm Ryan Martin.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Well, House Agriculture Committee ranking member Angie Craig has introduced the Farm and Family Relief Act, legislation aimed at providing financial relief to family farmers and addressing rising costs facing households. According to Craig, the bill is designed to support farmers, foresters, and families while responding to economic pressures tied to inflation and trade policy. Craig said family farmers have faced challenges from tariffs and lost market opportunities and argued the legislation would help strengthen the agriculture economy. A recent report from Joint Economic Committee Democrats estimated inflation increased costs for the average family by $1,625 over the past year. The report also notes fruits and vegetable prices rose 5.3% and grocery expenses increased by about $310 in 2025 compared to 2024. Coming up, we'll hear from Ty Higgins on finding more demand for U.S. soybeans next here on the Ohio AgNet.
It's time for the Morton Buildings Building Value Days sales event running now through the end of February. Morton buildings are built stronger, last longer, and look better. So if you're planning for a garage, farm shop, stall barn, a storage building for your RV, boat, or collectibles, or anything in between, act now. Our buildings are built to last, but these savings won't. Visit MortonBuildings.com or contact your local Morton office to take advantage of current savings on new buildings. Certain restrictions may apply. Offer valid only on select new building orders placed between January 5th and February 28th, 2026.
Nearly 90% of farmers say that financial worries, constantly changing market conditions, and other uncontrollable variables take a toll on their mental well-being. Add in the weather and family dynamics, well, it's a lot to handle alone. But did you know farmers and their families can receive free confidential services from licensed professionals? Support is available 24/7 to help with the challenges you face. Look for Farm Family Wellness Alliance under the Resources tab at farmfoundation.org. Take care of yourself. Your well-being matters.
We're in Anaheim, California for the 2026 American Farm Bureau Convention. Carla Schultz joins me. She's the director of the United Soybean Board from that state up north, but we'll still give her a little bit of time to talk about demand for soybeans, something that we're talking about quite a bit now with the price of soybeans. Finding demand is more important now than it has been in some time. What are some of the things you're visiting with here at American Farm Bureau as you talk about demand for soybeans, not just here in the U.S., but across the globe?
Yeah, I think it's very exciting, right, when we look at global demand. And I know there's been a lot in the headlines of seeing China not taking as many soybeans as in the past, but I think a big part of that is we're trying to grow the markets beyond China, right? And China is still a very important market. At the same time, we've got partners like USEC, right, the United Soybean Export Council that we work with exclusively as well. That's trying to build those demands so we've got that bigger portfolio to pick from, right? And that's really what you want. You want to be diversified, and we even talk about, right, investments and stocks at your own personal level. Same way here, we're talking from the United Soybean Board. It's like we want that diversified portfolio. So if China is down with taking beans, we're going to another country, and it may be some emerging markets out there that we're looking into as well. So that's exciting.
And how important is it? I mean, there's a pamphlet here at AFBF that talks about top exports for, this is back in 2023, but I'm sure these numbers still resonate, is that soybeans outpace every other thing by 100%.
Yeah, so you can tell exports are very essential to us and very important, right? And so it's like driving that demand, fueling that demand across the globe for what we grow in America.
And I think the way we think about trade probably needs to change. If not already, it will be about, when you talk about demand for soybeans, it's not about putting beans on a boat and getting them overseas. There are so many other ways that you're building demand for beans.
And isn't that true? And I think that biggest piece that we're looking at right now is livestock feed, right? We know that's a huge part of that. And it's like, well, how can we drive that? How can we tell the story of the quality protein that comes from the beans that we grow in America, and how are we feeding the livestock that we're putting on a plate in front of us? And that's beyond that's on the globe as well, right? Because we know that demand is growing. Maybe not in parts of the America that we see, but we know across in Asia, right? We know in Europe, let's say in Africa, all of those are growing. It's growth for us. So if we can get that message to nutritionists, veterinarians, livestock suppliers, that's a huge piece that we will see grow in the future as well.
And of course, fuel is a part of this conversation with Sustainable Aviation Fuel, SAF as it's known, starting to get a lot more traction, not just inside the Beltway, but really across the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we look at biodiesel, right, and we look at those biofuels, really the real growth may be with maritime as well as, sometimes you think of it back to your own story, right? We think of cars, vehicles, but look at a bigger picture, those maritime vessels, the railroads that use it as well. And then think of it from our domestic standpoint, but then think of it across the globe once again. How are those used in other countries? And I think that's a great piece that's going to continue to grow as well.
One of the messages you're going to be sharing here in Anaheim as well is about just how the vision with USB needs to be long term. A lot of farmers are making plans or already have made plans for this next year, but what you're doing at USB goes far beyond 2026.
And Ty, that's so true. A lot of times, right, it's our feet on the ground, our boots on the ground at our farm level. But as a United Soybean Board Director, I always like to say we're kind of a helicopter view, right? We're the airplane view of like what do we see across that's coming down the pipeline 5 to 10 years out, because that's really going to be integral to, how we're investing and why we're investing in the future.
Carla Schultz, Director of United Soybean Board, joining us here in Anaheim, California at the American Farm Bureau Convention. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Ty.
Hey, thanks, Ty, for the update. Well, USDA research economist Tracy Farragon looks at low debt to income in rural America and how it improves economics for both individuals and counties.
That's a pretty positive thing for rural America. And part of that is that if you have low debt to income, it can impact things like access to credit, which can allow households to smooth economic shocks. Credit just not for the sake of credit, but also to build assets over time and enhance financial standing. And when you look at it as an aggregate measure for the county as a whole, it can suggest similar things for an entire area. For instance, a lower overall debt to income ratio may make rural counties more resilient to economic shocks and stresses, such as those brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Again, that was USDA research economist Tracy Farragon. It's now time for today's market analysis, which is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company, excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. Call 574-566-2113 for information on soybean marketing to LDC. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets had some trouble as we kicked off the work week yesterday. Markets on the corn and wheat side were lower from the get-go. Beans toyed with our emotions through the first part of the day, chopping around into positive and negative territory, but by midday had settled into a decidedly weaker tone, finishing down about 3 to 6 cents. Corn was down 1 to 2. Wheat accelerated losses into the close, down 7 to 11 in Chicago, KC, and Minneapolis markets overall. The abundance of U.S. and world grain out there is putting a lid in on any rally on the Board of Trade. Traders are also discussing that U.S. and world producers are holding massive amounts of stored grain. The December 1st stocks report out of the U.S. sold U.S. farmers were holding a record percentage. When will the U.S. farmers shed that stored supply is the question as we head into the next few months. A lot of it's going to revolve around need for funds, and I know some of that's popping up right now. I'm Ryan Martin.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Now let's take a look at your overnight trade brought to us by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. March corn staying steady at $4.28 1/4. May corn up a half to $4.36 1/2. As we turn to soybeans, March $10.60 3/4 down a penny. May soybeans $10.73 1/4 down 3/4. And July wheat $5.43 1/2 down 1 3/4. And September wheat $5.57 3/4 down 1 3/4. As we turn to livestock from yesterday's close, February live cattle $236.02 up $1.12. April live cattle $238 up $1.07. February lean hogs $88.30 down 5 cents. April lean hogs $96.72 up 55 cents. And as we turn to feeder cattle, March $362.60 up $2.42. April feeder cattle $361.20 up $2.45. February Class 3 milk $16.08 up a nickel, and March Class 3 milk $16.50 up 15 cents. For all the latest ag news, markets, and weather, you can find that at ohioagnet.com. Thanks for joining us and have a great morning, everyone. You're listening to the Ohio AgNet.